What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and there's been a rather interesting development in the lands of Warhammer that is leading to yet another cancel culture situation happening in real time. Beyond this, it looks like Sweet Baby has gotten desperate as work begins to dry out. And games are failing even more, layoffs are happening, and much more. Firstly, Warhammer 40K. As you likely know, the big game for Focus Entertainment this fall is Space Marine 2. It currently sits at around 114,000 wishlists on Steam alone, easily putting it in the top echelon of games that players are looking forward to. Objectively, the game does look fun, and I said this a while back, but Space Marine 2 has the potential to soar like Helldivers did, as long as they stick the landing and don't ruin it with virtue signaling nonsense. Also, in case you didn't know, the entirety of Space Marine 2 leaked online recently. I haven't looked into gameplay or story in terms of the leaks, since that would obviously ruin the experience, and although I am skeptical about this game, I can't lie that I am interested in it. But Focus Entertainment released a statement recently confirming that yes, the entire game has leaked. It's over 70 gigabytes of data now roaming the pirating shores of the internet. I won't be covering what's inside of it for obvious reasons, but I guess if you care about Space Marine 2's story especially, just be vigilant when you're on social media platforms, I guess. Because you never know, some eager Warhammer fan might post spoilers. As for this video, don't worry, anything I use in terms of footage has been officially released, so relax. Anyways, beyond that massive screw up, there's been another huge problem brewing as well. From Fandom Pulse, pro-Ukraine activists tried to cancel Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 over Russian involvement as full video game leaks to internet. So this all started because a developer who works on Space Marine 2 got ousted by cancel culture people looking to see if Space Marine 2 fits their agenda or not. The person in question goes by Triangel on Twitter. By the way, don't harass this individual or anything like that. What's happening here is that Triangel has been ousted for being pro-Russian and claiming in tweets that have now since been deleted that Ukraine has and always will be a part of Russia, which of course you can imagine such a statement based on the fact there's a war going on there right now would stifle some people's political opinions aplenty. This hasn't stopped users who are pro-Ukrainian from attempting to force Focus Entertainment and development studio Saber from firing this individual over their political opinions. Like I said, since this has happened, the posts have been deleted. I checked their Twitter and yeah, the comments from the screen cap are now gone as of the making of this video. It's obvious that Triangel, or whatever their real name is, caught wind of this and decided to run their own form of damage control to shift the narrative or shield themselves from being fired for their political views. This is pretty much one of those things where you're screwed either way. I mean, this was posted all the way back in 2012 where someone said, "How come there is no country? The most real sovereign country is Ukraine, or are you a Ukrainophobe?" To which this Triangel person would reply, "Ukraine, part of Russia." This led to many users attacking Focus and Saber. One user even said, "Okay, but what about the controversy behind one of the developers and you guys canceling beta? That's not a good sign. Is the unfinished build the actual game that was going to be like at launch?" There's a lot of broken English in these replies, but I guess that's to be expected. I wager many of these people's first languages aren't English, which is fine. But this is what I'm talking about when it comes to cancel culture. All of it is utter cancer, no matter the political angle. I talked recently on how Doom's creator suddenly denouncing cancel culture was too little and too late. And of course the Actman as well, who suddenly thought cancel culture was wrong only after he himself used said cancel culture to boost his own channel when it came to stuff like Starfield and more. Cancel culture is a very pathetic concept from the get-go, and I never advocate that anyone fully submerge themselves into it. Criticizing someone or something is not cancel culture, by the way. Saying you should vote with your wallet if a game has Sweet Baby involved is also not cancel culture. But if I were to tell you don't play Warhammer 40K because a programmer has a pro-Russia political viewpoint, that would technically be cancel culture. I don't want anyone to harass or attack this Triangel guy, but this kind of proves my point that cancel culture is alive and well, even after many say it's not even a thing anymore. Space Marine 2 has enough problems as is with the whole public beta getting cancelled, which by the way was promoted as an incentive in order to boost pre-order numbers. Only now instead of a public beta, people who pre-ordered get a skin for their pistol. Great, thanks Saber. Not to mention that the game was supposed to be out by fall 2023 and that clearly didn't happen. The game needed an entire extra year pretty much to fix whatever underlying problems the game may have. which if the public beta is getting cancelled now, almost a year past its original release date, it makes me very worried that the game itself might be cooked internally and many of its systems might not work properly even now. It's like Saber bit off more than they could chew, and Space Marine 2 is far too ambitious for the developer's original vision. But to have all of these problems behind the scenes already, and again, your entire game leaked so now online pirates can just play the game in full, although not finished, but you know they still can, and then you got pro-Ukrainian Twitter accounts saying stuff like this. You have got what you deserve for working with Russians from terrorist state. This account called Gameway UA, which based on what I've glanced at their public profile, it seems to be a Ukrainian-based video games news website, so they obviously will have their own opinions when it comes to political tensions. But this is what I mean, which is that when you bring politics into games like this, it never ends well for anyone. Space Marine 2 is being developed by Saber Interactive, which is an American-based game studio where its headquarters is in Florida. But the studio has many smaller studios that work on their games in other countries, and obviously one of those would happen to be in Ukraine. I mean, Saber has 1,350 employees according to their Wikipedia, and there is bound to be developers there, especially Ukrainian ones, that are going to have political opinions. This is why I always say, if you're making a product, you should keep your politics to yourself. Because speaking out in defense of either side, in this case, Ukraine or Russia, you're just going to divide people and piss them off. I also just find it unfair to lob any and all citizens behind certain flags and then just say that they all think the same. For example, I live in Canada, I was born here, but me and the current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, well, Prime Minister as of the making of this video anyway, we couldn't have more different opinions on basically everything. So don't look at me as a Canadian and think that I somehow politically align with Trudeau or something, because I definitely do not. And the same way you should these Ukrainian or Russian devs. Just because a dev is Russian doesn't mean that they're evil. Same goes with Ukrainian or anyone else. Unfortunately, lots of people are being lobbed into categories like this, and so far anyway, it seems that Saber has not made any mention of this developer, nor has there been any official confirmation that they've been fired either. What this could mean is either Saber is hoping if they just ignore it, it'll go away and that'll be it, but again, when things like this are happening, it leads to lingering wounds festering. Sort of like how Black Myth Wukong's devs got accused of sexism, and now every article under the sun about them, no matter what news is about, it always has to mention that sexism story. The same thing could be happening here. However, I would wager if and when IGN or others catch wind of this, it might lead to a PR disaster. Mostly cause many woke-minded individuals pretty much make their entire personality and opinions based on the overall hive mind. And since the hive mind says Ukraine good, Russia bad, well, that means that this makes this developer bad. I'm not saying that I'm defending the developer or whether I stand behind either Russia or Ukraine. I have no skin in that war, and it's not my place to tell you what you should think when it comes to international conflicts like that. It's why you'll also never see me say that you should pick Israel or Palestine either. Just leave me out of that. This is not the channel if you want opinions on stuff like that. I'll leave those nuclear bomb level topics to other channels to cover instead. No thanks, I'm good. But if you ask me if I was Focus or Saber, I would not apologize for this, because all you're going to do is give more fuel and power to activists who scream until they get what they want without having to actually debate or do anything themselves. If this developer ends up getting fired for his political views, it sets a scary precedent that can and will keep getting bigger until these activists gain more and more power. And that's the last thing you want here, because we know that many of these activists, like always, don't even buy games anyways. And largely speaking, whatever it is that woke people back and endorse, it usually comes with the underlying motives of communism. And if we know anything about commies, those weirdos never have any money anyways. Why they're communists in the first place? No one who actually makes money and lives well wants to be a commie. It's the losers with the unwashed buttholes living in a commune with their polyamorous situationships that drink soy milk all day that do. These are of course the last kind of people you want power to be given to. Unfortunately, when it comes to games, those are the very same kinds of people that seem to be propped up and placed into positions of power almost exclusively these days. Which is why the majority of your Western games are slop, feature all the buzzwords and checking of boxes and nothing actually substantial or interesting. It's why gaming in general has become less masculine or inspiring, is what I'm saying. Can't really be inspired when so many games are being led by woke commie morons who are propagated by liberal white women who think the way that they do. These are not the people you want to embolden. It's like that saying, weak men make hard times. Basically, that is what is happening right now. Too many weak men and women are rolling over on their backs and allowing things to happen, and look where it's gotten us. We should never let these individuals gain more power, and if companies start firing people because some activist who wasn't going to buy their product says they need to fire this person or else, not only is that a direct violation of free speech laws, but will just make the future even more worse than it already is. I like to think, thanks to the work that I do and other channels and more, that things are changing for the better. Conservative ideologies are becoming more accepted, cancel culture is largely being abandoned for the most part, and the woke freaks out there are getting a taste of their own medicine. Just look at the whole Mr. Beast Chris situation brewing right now on social media. That's a spicy situation. It will likely not end well whatsoever for anybody, but hey, that's what happens when nobody says what really needs to be said, so here we are. But with Warhammer, they're already dealing with problems from lore changes, woke writers, and more. Need I remind you, Space Marine 2's lead writer was someone who advocated to put anyone who played Hogwarts Legacy on a list like they're some SS officer or something. Too many of these similar-minded individuals are just being given free reign, and it needs to be rooted out and called out too. As I joked in a previous video, I'm just waiting till Space Marine 2 confirms that female Space Marines are somehow in its campaign. Maybe if and when someone plays the leaked Space Marine 2 campaign, they can confirm that at some point. I hope not, by the way. I really hope they don't do that. But this is where we're at with Space Marine 2 right now. The game is currently in a lot of hot water. Betas are getting cancelled. The entire friggin' game leaked online before release. Their writer hates anyone with conservative leading views, and now one of their developers is getting cancelled for tweets they made in the past over political tensions. As if Saber needed more problems, right? Now, let's switch to the next story with Sweet Baby Inc. Allegedly, the studio A44 has been hit with mass layoffs. This is the developer behind the game Flintlock Siege of Dawn. You likely remember it. It's a game that is on Game Pass Day 1 and features a Zendaya lookalike hero killing white men and fighting gods who are allegories for colonialism. Grums, who's a friend of the channel, said that he was told privately that A44 is basically being pulled apart and dismantled after the release of the game. He posted pictures of the credits for Flintlock, and every name with a blue line is apparently someone who got laid off following its abysmal release. Need to remind you that the game has barely 500 players on Steam, and this is a game that costs $50 to $60 Canadian at release if you wanted to play it on PC or PlayStation. Grums also pointed out that Flintlock's special thanks section in their credits is ludicrous in size, which is not normal for most games. And fun fact, the special thanks part of games credits are usually there for developers who are no longer at the studio, but they have worked on the project at some point. This means that what Grums reported on originally when it came to Flintlock a few months back, where former devs there spilled the beans about the game, that it was indeed infested with DEI and Sweet Baby nonsense the entire time, and in that report the anonymous devs confirmed that Flintlock has had insane amounts of developers coming and going constantly because the people who were the producers on it were morons that didn't know how to properly make a game. And the truth is in the product. I mean, it didn't review well, it looks like nobody bought it, so it'll be like I said. This game will be on PS Plus within the next year, and you can bet your sweet butt cheeks it'll be on deep sale both physically and digitally before long. I expect once Black Friday and Boxing Day roll around that Flintlock will be like 80 to 90% off just so that most stores can get rid of their stock due to low demand. Even then, I wouldn't buy it either. I mean, the game is SBI infected, and it looks like a poor man's weird Dark Souls meets Atlas Fallen or something. No thanks, I'm good. Grums also shared that he has also been given exclusive information about the going-ons behind Sweet Baby, and one of their writers, Amy Lee Shaw, has been ousted for running private server group chats where she's attempting to get Sweet Baby work from what seems to be UK-based game companies. As seen here, this is what Amy said. Hi all, a little less specific than some of the other posts in here, but I'd love to speak to anyone who wants to chat about how narrative at Sweet Baby Inc. works or would like to build a connection with us. A lot of people still don't realize that the company has a UK base and UK employees, so it'd be great to start building some relationships in my own time zone. Then, as seen beneath Amy's name, there's plenty of alleged devs or voice actors of various companies saying typical yes men nonsense like me too or I'm open to this and so on. So Sweet Baby is clearly trying to reach out and get their claws into more projects for the foreseeable future, which is obviously not a good thing at all considering how many games they've ruined and studios they've closed due to their involvement. Grums said about this, and I quote, Sweet Baby Inc. is alive, but desperate and trying to drum up business. Sweet Baby Inc. writer Amy Lee Shaw posted to the UK games industry Slack group, offering to speak to anyone who wanted to know how narrative at Sweet Baby Inc. works. I looked up every single reply. They are mostly all writers and voice actors looking for jobs, as most have recently left studio positions while some are trying to break in. Sources have told me that some game studios are aware of their activist infestation and have been working to prune them. My advice, don't team up with Sweet Baby Inc. unless you want your studio closed or hit with massive layoffs like Flintlock's A44 and so many other studios that they've touched, end quote. So it's interesting that Grums says studios have started to prune them. I'll have to ask Grums myself about this to learn more so that I can relay that information to you guys. I'll probably share an update on that story in the future once I finish this video and have a chat with him, because it would be interesting to find out which development studios exactly are actually purging Sweet Baby nonsense and consultant groups in general from their studios. Because that would be a big boon for those studios to say that out loud, and it would make people want to support them if they took that stance. And we can see that the rejection of Sweet Baby Inc. and nonsense like it is working real well too. Just take a look at Ubisoft stock recently. It's not going well for them, and remember that Sweet Baby Inc. was founded by 2 former Ubisoft employees. So this kind of tells me that things aren't going well and the general gaming public is starting to wake up to this, and good for them. And remember, AC Shadows and Star Wars Outlaws are the big games for Ubisoft, and they're not going very well, and that's putting it lightly. And also, just to show you how current day Sweet Baby games are made, take a look at how Flintlock the Siege of Dawn's devs apparently couldn't even get the game's basic user interface right. This comes from a user on Twitter. Just look at this dude.
So I'm going to explain how the settings work in Flintlock and why everything runs like actual garbage. So what we're going to do is go into the main menu, and we're going to go into settings. And when you go to graphics, you're going to tap it once and you're only going to see advanced graphics. And then on the bottom, you're going to see restore to default settings, apply, and select. The thing is, this menu does not give you all the graphics settings. Hit your spacebar again while you're hovering over the graphics tab, and then it gives you the presets of what you want to actually change graphically in the game. They are literally hiding the graphics options inside of the graphics menu, and the default of what it's going to be set to is almost always ultra. So that's why your game runs at like 40 FPS. That's why everything looks terrible. That's why nothing runs well. Knock it down to high or medium and you get the same visual quality, but then you also get a better frame rate. So they are literally hiding the graphics options inside of the graphics tab. This is a UI failure in this game.
How incompetent do you have to be when it comes to these things? It's no wonder these games are failing. It's almost as if being Sweet Baby infused is just the cherry on top of the poop pie for many of these projects. If you can't even get the UI to work correctly or display critical information, to be real with you, Flintlock was likely cooked even prior to SBI being involved to begin with. It's amazing that stuff like this gets made and people are paid to do it. And yet every time these games come out, these journalists fight and scream with all of us saying that we should play and support this sort of slop. Why should I play something that for one isn't good, doesn't run well apparently, can't even properly show its settings correctly, and it's full of woke nonsense too? Like at that point you gotta pick a battle, man. You can't be fighting the ops on every front like this, you aren't gonna win. But this is what happens when you get in bed with the stinky baby. Now the sheets smell like poop and everybody has pink eye. Great job A44, SBI, and everyone involved. What a goddamn mess. Anyways, another game which I can't confirm yet is Sweet Baby Inc. influenced, but I wouldn't be surprised, is Concord. We already know that this game is ass, and the game's free open beta did abysmal numbers. It's going to be a massive flop for PlayStation, and I genuinely can't wrap my head around why Sony of all places funded this dumpster fire in the first place. But Smash JT, who's also a YouTuber, found more info about the inner workings of Firewalk Studios, who makes Concord. And I mean, this just feels like Sweet Baby 2.0 nonsense to me. Here's what he said via Twitter. Firewalk Studios, the studio behind the impending Concord flop, has serious internal issues. One of their devs, Lisa Brown, aka Wurtle, came out as non-binary and forced everyone at the company to call her Professor. She would regularly have meetings with cheesy phrases like teaching, learning with the professor. She pushed extreme politics, hated guns, and wanted unvaxxed staff fired. This is just part of why Concord is such a delusional mess. I found out a lot more about the studio just awaiting confirmation before going public with other stuff. By the way, don't harass this developer or anything like that because I never condone this sort of behavior. Let's just observe and witness. But does it surprise you that people like this are working at studios that make games where the hero roster is a diverse collection of ugly mongoloids with pronouns in the select screen? The part here that irked me the most was that this Lisa Brown person wanted unvaccinated employees to be fired allegedly. Like, what the hell is that about? How does being unvaxxed affect your ability to make games? Not to mention with today's work from home initiatives aplenty, this should matter even less. But I do remember when I was working in restaurants that I needed to be vaccinated to eat after I was done working at the restaurant, like at actual tables. But I was able to eat food while being unvaccinated in one of the back rooms of the restaurant on my shift, so I was able to eat anyways without ever getting the vax myself. So does that make any sense to you? Of course not. I also knew people who either worked with me at the restaurant that had other jobs, and they said even though they worked from home doing whatever that they were doing, they had to get vaccinated anyways or they would lose their jobs also. Isn't that insane? You're somehow putting your coworkers at risk by not being vaccinated while being hundreds of miles apart in your own room that is nowhere near them. This was obviously being done in a similar fashion to ESG or DEI basically. The more people that got the poke, the more the company could virtue signal and then put it in their reports. So having someone like this at Firewalk doesn't surprise me really, but man is it disappointing. If you already didn't think that all these people are in some weird cult, it's pretty much apparent now. But this is the nature of the AAA gaming Western industry right now, I guess. If you're unvaccinated, you get singled out and attacked by woke devs like this Lisa Brown person. You can also lose your job or get relegated to special thanks if you work for Sweet Baby Inc. projects. And if you're a Warhammer dev, apparently you're a Yahtzee monster if you show support for any opposing ideology that doesn't fit the mold. If this same dev was pro-Ukraine, they would be praising him, but he spoke out, and again, need to remind you, I don't condone or agree with either political opinion. I have no skin in that game, but clearly if you say what people don't like, it just means you're evil now. So if this video proved anything, it's that the modern games industry is definitely one big ugly cult of woke freaks all thrashing and screaming until they get what they want. So what do you think about all of this? Will this pro-Russian developer make you not want to buy Space Marine 2? Did you play or buy Flintlock? Is the backlash towards Sweet Baby too much or is it justified? And what about Concord? Are you going to buy it or watch it burn instead? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, subscribe, share, like the video. Thanks to my patrons and channel members. Again, if you want to be a member, it's $3 and you'll get custom badges and emojis. Thanks for being here, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy some gaming, please. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.